Hello, and thank you so much for joining us for AFI Fest 2021 and for this Q&A for The Girl and the Spider. I'm Malin Kahn, and I'm a programmer with AFI Festivals. I am so pleased to have here with me today the filmmakers of The Girl and the Spider, Ramon and Silvan Zürcher. Thank you both so much for taking the time to speak with me, and congratulations on this film.
Thank you very much, and also hello, Malin, and thanks for having us. It's a big honor, and we're looking forward very much.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I also just wanted to say hello, Los Angeles and AFI Fest and Malin. Really is a big honor, and we're looking forward a lot to sharing the film with the Los Angeles audience.
Yeah, it was, it's such an honor for me. I was so excited to see your names in the Berlin lineup because we actually screened The Strange Little Cat back in at AFI Fest in 2013. And meanwhile, across town, I also screened it myself at a small student screening series at UCLA. So I've been waiting to see what your next film was since then. But I didn't, in any way expect that this would become a trilogy, which you're calling this kind of trilogy of human togetherness. I would love it if you could just kind of begin this by talking a little bit more about this concept and how that originated.
Well, actually, it was not that the concept was first and then we developed those three films. It was rather that there was The Strange Little Cat in 2013. And then I was on the festival circuit with the film, Silvan started to write, to develop the Girl and the Spider. And when I was back, then I started to write the Sparrow in the Chimney, which is the name of the third part. And then when we started to speak about it, about the similarities or about what's happening, the characters and everything, then we've seen that it's a kind of familiar and that those three films are kind of siblings. And so then during the process, then we started to think those three films as a small family. And so it was like there was the cat, Strange Little Cat, the spider, and the sparrow.
Talking about The Strange Little Cat, that actually wasn't a directorial collaboration. That was just directed by you, Ramon, correct? And as I understand, there was a collaborative element there, though. Could you talk about how those kind of roles have changed throughout the course of, as you're working on the third film now?
Back then, when making the Strange Little Cat, we were still students at the DFFB. That's a film academy in Berlin. And so actually the film, The Strange Little Cat, originated within the framework of this academy. And our roles were the roles we had as students, like me studying film production. I produced it. And Ramon, studying film direction, he directed and wrote it. So there it was quite classical that I produced it and Ramon wrote and directed it. And then now here with The Girl and the Spider, it's that I started to write the script. And then we started to co-write. So we tried for the first time to collaborate already in the writing. And then later, when shooting, we also co-directed in a specific way. And this specific way wasn't that we did, for example, work with the actors both, but it is very clear that it was just Ramon talking to the actors. And Mia was rather like a second pair of eyes and ears that observed and then feedbacked to Ramon what's my impression, where, for example, the rhythm could improve by changing something. So it was rather like this. And all the other things like directors do, the decisions of the costume, the set design, but also the music, and then the sound design. There it was that the two of us made the decisions like together, that we were in a very close discussion constantly, and decided these things together. But the third film, the next film, there again, we will work with the roles we had when doing The Strange Little Cat, that me, I'm going to produce it, and Ramon, he already wrote the script and will then direct it also.
This film is introduced with a static shot of the apartment floor plan, which introduces the premise of Lisa moving, but also a kind of different awareness of space in this film, which feels incredibly important. So how did you kind of conceptualize space and movement, and how was that articulated in the actual writing process?
Actually, when we wrote the script, or when Silvan started to write it, and then we collaborated, very early we thought those two protagonists, Mara and Lisa, as Mara was rather the static character and Lisa rather the movement. And as it is, it tells the story of that separation. We knew that it's like not really the conflict of static and movement, but that there are those two energies. And so we narrated Mara rather in those static shots as a static body, and Lisa was always with her yellow t-shirt, like a molecule who's moving around. He has the dynamics, the energy. And so actually we knew that there's that contrast of the static shots and of a mise en scène, which is rather, do you say lively? Lively. Lively. A mise en scène which is rather lively as the contrast to the static shots, and that there is not only a formal contrast, but also of those two characters. And actually, then we started to already visualize the formal decisions in the script writing. So we knew where to edit, we knew what is on screen, which is off screen. Then later we made storyboards, writing our own floor plans. Then we realized that we won't find some original locations. So we had the possibility to really build those flats in a studio-like situation in Bern. And so actually that concept of static shots and lively mise en scène was already in the script, but then became always more present. And actually one of the most important thoughts was that Mara as a static character and Lisa actually as a dynamic character, but at the end that Mara disappears like a ghost, but she doesn't disappear in going away, but she just disappears in disappearing like a ghost. Like also the chambermaid disappeared months or years ago when she went on that boat. And so actually, yes, as it was very important how to narrate the space, filmic space, and to narrate also the psychology of the characters.
And concerning space, it was also clear that we wanted to work with narrow shots, like very little or no establishing or wider shots, in order to create something like a puzzle, or that the filmic space becomes like a jigsaw puzzle that the spectators have to kind of observe very closely in order to get orientation. And this was a bit like as if an alien would just come on Earth and then be put in this very situation without knowing who is who, who's the mother, who's the daughter, who's friends. that there's at the very beginning no establishing or orientation, but that the spectators like this narrator alien has to observe very closely all the signs, like the acoustic sounds, but also the visual sounds, signs, to then get like the orientation over the relationships and also over the spatial the spatial relationships, because the space is also a bit like there's different apartments, but they kind of merge or fuse as if it's one organ. And sometimes it's difficult to say, are we in this apartment or in another? And the film also very much is about the desire of or to connect, to fuse, to build a unity, a symbiotic one. And so we found it interesting that there's not really walls and doors that separate or rooms that are separated, but that it's like this spatial labyrinth in a way.
That kind of concept is a little bit mirrored in the actual exchanges between the people as well, because it does seem like, despite they're all kind of moving around in the same place and trying to accomplish the same task, their exchanges are really unpredictable. And even so much as an eye line doesn't seem to be connected often, or the camera will linger on a character often kind of after their conversation partner has left. So just kind of, was it your intention to emphasize communication happening on an individual level? Because in a way, that's kind of the opposite of how one might conceive of human togetherness.
Yeah, it was because for us it was very what I said before, this desire to connect, but in opposition to the experience of being isolated in one's own bubble of experiencing, like this isolation versus this desire to connect was very central also to the way we thought communication in this film, because usually like communication, like words are exist to share something, like one experiences something and then wants to share it with someone else by telling what happened. But here it's often that the characters tell stories, and but still there's something like a speechlessness. So they're not really capable to express what they really want to express, like centrally, but it's stories that that don't longer function to share something they essentially want to share. So here it's as if dialogues no longer, or communication no longer connects characters, but further isolates them. And in a way, it's for us, it's also a ballet about this brittle world, like things are falling apart, relationships, unities, friendships, and then things are no longer connected. And also a bit like the eye lines you mentioned, like the gazes, that they look somewhere, but and then there's no counter shot. And that's why it doesn't feel as if they were connected by shot and counter shot, but as if they were even more separated, even though they're in the same room. I hope I'm understandable.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting. It's exactly, how it feels that you're, as you described, the kind of alien trying to understand communication. um, but I want to ask about the kind of non-human elements, the crinkling of the plastic. I think a lot of this is kind of the score and the sound, especially the sound and the music design. There's the recurring classical piece. There's also Voyage, Voyage, the French pop song, and there's some electronic music, but then there's the wind, there's the crinkling of the plastic, there's the sound of a jackhammer and a fly buzzing. How did these kind of different elements come together for you in the sound design?
Actually, I think it's like a consequence of the visual concept in saying that, or that we kind of had those rules. For example, that we have the static camera, that we don't edit so much, that we just have already during the shooting of the film, we knew where starts the shot, where does it end, and we knew that we never use one shot twice, or as it's normally that you have the master shot or different master shots, and then you can make like what's the name? Schuss gegen Schuss. Shot, reverse shot, or
Reverse
Yes.
shot.
actually that's also something to link persons, shot, reverse shot. But actually, as we knew that we have that static camera, not so many cuts, and that we knew that it's rather enge shots, not without establishing shots. We knew that the sound will be very, very important, that actually that the sound will be a very important part of the space, to hear other dialogues, to hear the man with the Presslufthammer,
The jackhammer, yeah.
jackhammer, and all those things. And often there is sound design sounds or effect sounds or things which makes them, which like of manipulates that the spectator knows, now it's a dramatic scene, now I have to be a little bit sad because it's emotional. But we knew that we want to use the sounds of the setting and real sounds, sometimes destructive sounds, to make it more brittle, that brittle universe kind of gets more concrete. And then not using the music during the scene with the actors, but later when we have those objects, so that the music is rather to structure the narration, or is rather as if the whole film would be a composition. And so we have those different parts, and we can use, for example, the Belarusian waltz to structure the narration, to put those real-time monoliths, those real-time scenes. And we also knew that we want to have, according or concerning the music, also the contrast of trashy 80s pop, voyage voyage, and rather classy waltz, so that it's not just one formal direction, but that it's rather diverse. And I think that in diversity, it's more open and it can go in different directions, and then it's not so simple, maybe. And what we also knew that we want to have like that leitmotif, which is a little bit like the inner voice of the protagonist of Mara, who has that desire, the longing maybe of a certain liberty, freedom, to go away, a little bit like the chambermaid on her boat. And so we knew that the piano interpretations of Voyage Voyage, it is a little bit like the sound, the inner sound of the inner life of Mara, and also of the chambermaid.
We are somehow out of time, but I just want to thank you both for this conversation and for this film, for allowing us to present it as a part of AFI Fest. Also to our audience, thank you so much for attending and for your continued support. Please visit our website at fest.afi.com for more opportunities to engage with the festival. We would also love to hear from you on social media at #AFI Fest. Thank you both so much.
Thank you, too.
Thanks a lot.